After her father's company suddenly went bankrupt, 29-year-old Amanda was forced to leave her independent life in San Diego and return home to Texas to live with her parents and younger brother Ethan. She had gone from being a creative designer at a prestigious software company to being the sole breadwinner for her family. Her parents, accustomed to a comfortable life, had difficulty adjusting to the new economic situation. They could not find stable jobs and gradually relied on Amanda's income to survive. Amanda sent home $6,000 each month to cover living expenses, but it still seemed insufficient for her parents. One evening, as the family sat down to dinner, her mother said, "Amanda, can you help with the grocery bill? I want to make steak tomorrow, but we're running out of money this month." Amanda sighed and replied, "Mum, we've used up almost all the money you sent and it's only the middle of the month." Immediately Ethan interrupted in a reproachful tone. "You're not contributing enough to the family. Prices are expensive now. $6,000 isn't enough for 4 people anymore." Ethan's words stunned Amanda. She was shouldering all the expenses by herself, yet her younger brother still thought it wasn't enough. Meanwhile, Ethan was 23 years old, fully capable of working, but he just stayed at home, with no intention of finding a job. Amanda clenched her fork in her hand, trying to control her emotions when hearing her brother's unreasonable words. $6,000 a month, enough for a family of 4 to live comfortably if they knew how to save, but for her family it never seemed to be enough. She couldn't remember how many times they blamed her for being stingy, while she was the only one who shouldered everything. She looked at Ethan, who didn't have a job, nor did he intend to find one. Every day he spent his time playing games, watching movies and hanging out with friends, but he didn't feel any guilt about depending entirely on her income. As for her parents, instead of encouraging Ethan to be independent, they continued to protect him like a child, even transferring part of the money she sent to Ethan as pocket money without asking her opinion. Amanda took a deep breath, a bitter feeling welling up in her chest. She had worked tirelessly, sacrificed her personal interests, even given up dinners out or trips just to be able to send money back to her family. Yet now, no one in the family truly appreciated those efforts. They didn't see her as a child, but only as a bottomless wallet. She put down her knife and fork, her cold eyes looking straight at her mother. If this amount of money isn't enough, then why not let Ethan go to work? The room fell silent. But inside Amanda, a storm was brewing. Amanda thought that Ethan's laziness and refusal to work were the worst things, but she was wrong. The truth was much more cruel. One afternoon while she was working, Amanda received a call from the bank. The employee's voice was polite but a little urgent. "We'd like to confirm some recent transactions on your credit card. It seems that there have been some unusual charges." Amanda frowned. She rarely used her credit card, only for emergencies. But how could there be strange charges? Asked, "What is the total amount?" "Over the past 5 days, there have been transactions totaling $12,000. Amanda was stunned. She remembered very clearly. She hadn't spent anything during that time. A bad feeling came over her. "Please, give me the details of the transactions." The list appeared, and each line felt like a knife stabbing at her heart. Luxury hotel in Las Vegas, $4,500. High-expend fashion store, $2,800. Fancy restaurant, $3,200. Spa and nighttime entertainment, $1,500. Amanda felt her chest tighten. There was only one person who could do this. Ethan. Her hands were shaking as she dialed her brother's number. When Ethan answered, his voice was cheerful, as if nothing had happened. "Eh? Why are you calling me? Do you want me to buy you a souvenir?" Amanda gritted her teeth. A souvenir. It turned out he was in Las Vegas, enjoying a lavish vacation with her own hard-earned money. "Ethan, are you using my credit card?" There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, but then Ethan laughed. "Oh, you found out? But it's no big deal, sister. Haven't you always spent money on your family? I just borrowed a little bit." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. She never thought Ethan could be so brazen. "Borrowed? You call it borrowing $12,000 in 5 days? Don't be so nervous. I'm just going to use it again when you return the card. Oh, and remember to pay on time. I don't want to be charged interest." Ethan's heartless words made Amanda want to explode. She had had enough. "Ethan, I will not pay you any more." Amanda hung up, immediately locking her card, reporting it as fraud, and blocking all contact from Ethan. She no longer had the patience to continue being a free ATM for someone who didn't appreciate her. But she knew this wasn't over yet. Ethan wouldn't give up his money so easily, and her parents certainly wouldn't let her go. Amanda no longer felt angry. Her anger had turned into determination. She had sacrificed too much, and now she was going to get it all back. If Ethan and his parents saw her as a bottomless purse, then she would close it. But Amanda didn't just want to cut off the money. She wanted them to pay. Amanda knew Ethan wouldn't stop. He was used to spending money without a care, so she decided to play his game. A few days later, when Ethan called her, probably to beg for more money, Amanda deliberately acted weak. "Ethan, I think again. Maybe I overreacted. After all, I'm still your sister. If you need money, I can help a little." Ethan immediately became cheerful. "Sister, you finally understand. I told you, you make so much money, it's okay to help a little." Amanda smiled faintly. "I have a new credit card. The limit is much higher. If you want to use it, then take it, but don't spend too much." Ethan was like he had struck gold. He had no idea that this was a trap. Amanda had secretly applied for a credit card in Ethan's name. Since Ethan had worked a short-term part-time job before, his financial records were still in the system. She only needed to do a little paperwork to open a credit card with a fairly high limit. When Ethan received the card, he didn't bother to check it. He just thought it was another one of Amanda's credit cards. And of course, he went on a spending spree like a gambling addict. In just 2 weeks he blew $20,000 on. A new designer watch, $5,000. A trip to Miami, $7,500. Lavish parties, wine and fine dining, it's $6,000. A few new electronics, $1,500. Amanda monitored all the transactions remotely. He had no idea the card was in her name. At the end of the month, Amanda received a text message from Ethan. "Hey, the bank called me and said my card is past due. How could that be? It's not your card?" Amanda sneered. She texted back the exact same thing. "The card is in my name, Ethan, and I'm not paying it for you." It took a few seconds before Ethan sent back a series of panicked messages. "What are you talking about? Didn't you give me your card?" "What do you mean by that? I don't have the money to pay. Please, help me, or I'll be sued." Amanda didn't answer. She waited, and not long after, her parents called. "Amanda, how could you do that to your brother?" her mother screamed over the phone. "Ethan said you set him up. Did you know he'd go bankrupt?" Amanda calmly replied. "Mom, I'm just doing what Ethan's been doing to me for years. He spent his own money, created his own debt, so he should take responsibility for it." "But he doesn't have any money." "Then you and Dad should help me pay. I heard you still have some savings, right?" Her mother was silent. That was when Amanda struck the final blow. "If you want to help Ethan, I have a way. Sell the house." Her parents were stunned. Amanda continued. "Before, you signed over the house to me so I could help you pay the taxes. So, this house belongs to me now." Her parents gasped. They had forgotten about this. Amanda continued. "I've decided to sell the house. The buyer has signed the contract. In a week, you and Ethan have to leave." Everything fell into chaos. Her mother cried, Ethan begged, and her father sat motionless on the chair. But this time, Amanda did not give in. She looked at them calmly. "You can move in with Grandma. She has agreed to take everyone back." Her mother's face turned pale. Grandma was an extremely strict person and owned a large Italian restaurant in Miami. If they went there, the whole family would have to work hard every day. Ethan shouted. "I'm not going anywhere, you can't force me." Amanda shrugged. "It's okay, if you want to stay, earn money and pay off the debt yourself." A week later the house was officially sold. Mum and Dad and Ethan were forced to go to Miami. Under their grandmother's strict control, they had to learn to make a living for themselves. No one to pamper them, no one to shoulder the burden for them anymore. And Amanda? She left Texas, moved into a new apartment and started her own life again. For the first time in years, she felt relieved, no longer the family's living bank. After being pushed into a corner by Amanda, her parents and Ethan had no choice but to move in with their grandmother in Miami. The day they left, Amanda just watched from afar. There were no more tears of resistance, no more pleas, just Ethan's blank eyes and her parents' gloomy faces. They had grown accustomed to living in the comfort she brought, but now, everything had changed. As soon as they stepped into their grandmother's famous Italian restaurant, their parents and Ethan were immediately given a merciless work schedule. Ethan, cleaning the kitchen, washing dishes, doing heavy manual labor. Mom, in charge of cleaning the serving area, making sure everything is clean and tidy. Dad, must learn how to calculate costs, manage the inventory, and do the restaurant's accounting. Grandma is not like Amanda. She never gives in. Nobody is allowed to be lazy here. If you want to eat, you have to work. If you make a mistake, you have to do it again, no exceptions. Ethan, who used to live a comfortable life, now has to bend over and scrub dozens of large pots in a hot kitchen. His fingers, which were used to scrolling on the phone screen, are now blistered from constant contact with water and soap. Grandma, I'm not used to this kind of work, Ethan whined. Then get used to it, Grandma replied coldly, then threw him a rag. Even his parents weren't much better. Her mother, who used to make Amanda cook and clean, now had to clean the floors and scrub every corner of the kitchen counter herself. Every night, after the guests had left, her grandmother made her count the money she earned that day. A small amount, much less than the amount Amanda used to send home every month. It's so hard, her mother sighed. And all these years you've made Amanda work all by herself and you haven't complained? Her grandmother sneered. Her father, though he rarely spoke up, was beginning to feel the injustice they had caused. He used to say that the family needed to take care of themselves, but in the end, they had relied on Amanda for too long. I was really wrong, he whispered at night, sitting looking at the restaurant's messy books. 3 weeks passed. Ethan no longer received any allowance. No more games, no more luxurious trips. For the first time in his life, he truly felt that, without money, you can't live easily. One day, after washing dishes from morning to night, he was so exhausted that he collapsed on the kitchen floor. His grandmother stared at him. Are you tired? I can't do this forever. I want to go home, Ethan groaned. What house? Whose house? Amanda sold the house. Ethan was silent. He knew she was right. He had lost everything. The more he worked, the more he realized what Amanda had been through all these years. He had thought earning money was easy, but now just earning enough to eat was a difficult task. One night, after the restaurant closed, Ethan quietly looked at his hands. They were calloused, sore, and no longer clean. He remembered Amanda waking up early to cook for the family, working all day and still being scolded for not doing enough. For the first time in his life, he felt regret. Mum and Dad also gradually changed. Her mother initially blamed Amanda, but after living at her grandmother's house for a while, she gradually understood her mistake. She's been through so much, without me even realizing it. Her father also no longer had the same arrogant attitude as before. He started to take the initiative to work, no longer complaining about the situation. Grandma, though strict, was not a cruel person. When she saw them gradually changing, she softened her voice. Better late than never, at least you guys are learning how to be real people. After 3 months, a surprise call came to Amanda's phone. It was her grandmother. Hello, it's Amanda. The whole family is changing, especially Ethan. Grandma's voice was a little thoughtful. Really? Amanda was a little surprised. He started working, not as lazy as before. Your parents don't argue anymore. Amanda was silent, her heart filled with conflicting emotions. I'm not saying you have to forgive me right away, but think about it, Amanda. She hung up the phone, looking out the window. For the first time in years, she felt a little relieved. Her family had lost everything, but because of that, they had the opportunity to rebuild from scratch. 3 months passed, Amanda's life became more and more stable. She enjoyed the freedom of no longer having to worry about her family, no more text messages asking for money, no more pressure to shoulder everything. But even so, a part of her heart was still not truly at peace. Then, one day, while she was working, her phone rang. It was Ethan. Amanda hesitated. She had blocked him after the credit card incident, but now he was calling from an unknown number. Finally, she decided to pick up. "It's me, Ethan." His voice was no longer as arrogant as before, but rather reserved. She replied coldly. I wanted to see you. Not to ask for money or anything, I just wanted to talk." Amanda was silent. She didn't know whether to believe him or not. But then she remembered the conversation with her grandmother. The family was changing. Ethan was too. After thinking for a while, she agreed. "This Sunday, 3 p.m, the coffee shop near the train station." "Really? Thank you. You don't know how happy I am." His voice was filled with relief. When Amanda arrived at the coffee shop, Ethan was already sitting there, a complete contrast to his previous self. No more branded clothes, no more new phones. He looked simpler, thinner, but his eyes were somehow more sincere. As soon as he saw her, he immediately stood up. "Sister, thank you for coming." Amanda pulled a chair and sat down, crossing her arms over her chest. "Okay, say whatever you want to say." Ethan took a deep breath, lowered his head, as if gathering all his courage. "Oh, sister, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry for everything I've done to you." Amanda said nothing, just quietly observed him. "At first, I hated you for putting the whole family in this situation. I blamed you for cutting off the money, for selling the house, for forcing us to live with Grandma." He hesitated, then continued. "But then when I worked and earned my own money, I understood how you shouldered the family. I used to think that making money was easy, but in reality, just to survive was a struggle." He looked up, his eyes filled with remorse. "Sister, I really don't know what you've endured, but now I understand, and I want to change." For the first time in her life, Amanda saw Ethan as truly sincere. The family is also changing. After meeting Ethan, Amanda received a letter from her mother. "Dear Amanda, I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know that I am truly sorry. I was too selfish. I took your sacrifice for granted without appreciating it. Living with my grandmother wasn't easy, but thanks to it, I learned what it was like to be independent, to earn a living on my own. I worked hard, I cried, I was exhausted, but every time I did, I thought of you. You've done this for years, alone, without anyone's recognition. I know I can't change the past, but if you let me, I want to change the future. If you can, give me a chance. I love you. Mum." Amanda read the letter over and over again. Her heart felt like it was sinking. She couldn't forget all the hurt, but for the first time she felt that they really wanted to change. When Amanda arrived at the coffee shop, Ethan was already sitting there, completely different from his previous self. No longer wearing branded clothes, no longer wearing a new phone, he looked simpler, thinner, but his eyes were somehow more sincere. As soon as he saw her, he immediately stood up. "Sister, thank you for coming." Amanda pulled a chair to sit down, crossed her arms over her chest. "Okay, say whatever you want to say." Ethan took a deep breath, lowered his head, as if gathering all his courage. "Sister, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for everything I did to you." Amanda didn't say anything, just quietly observed him. "Chloe, at first I hated you for putting the whole family in this situation. I blamed you for cutting off the money, selling the house, forcing us to live with Grandma." He hesitated, then continued. "But then, when I worked and earned my own money, I understood how you shouldered the family. Before, I thought earning money was easy, but in reality, just to live was a battle." He looked up, his eyes full of remorse. "Sister, I really don't know what you've endured, but now I understand, and I want to change." For the first time in her life, Amanda saw Ethan was truly sincere. The family is also changing. After meeting Ethan, Amanda received a letter from her mother. "Dear Amanda, I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. I was too selfish, took your sacrifice for granted without appreciating it. Living with my grandmother was not easy, but thanks to that I learned what it was like to be independent, to earn a living by myself. I worked hard, I cried, I was exhausted, but every time I did I thought of you. You have done this for so many years, alone, without anyone's recognition. I know I cannot change the past, but if you allow me, I want to change the future. If you can, please give me a chance. I love you. Mum. Amanda read the letter over and over again. Her heart felt like it was sinking. She could not forget all the pain. But for the first time, she felt that they really wanted to change. Before Amanda left, her grandmother looked at her proudly. You have been strong to regain your freedom, but don't forget, the greatest strength is tolerance. Amanda did not answer right away. She just squeezed her mother's hand, as a promise that she would think about it. For the first time in many years, Amanda felt a glimmer of hope for her family. They might never be the same again, but at least, this could be a new beginning. From the above stories, we learn that self-worth cannot be determined by the expectations or exploitation of others. When faced with injustice in the family or society, the most important thing is to know how to set limits, dare to stand up for yourself, and not let anyone take advantage of your sacrifice. At the same time, change can always happen, but it only comes when people truly experience and realize their mistakes. Be strong enough to be independent, but also tolerant enough to forgive when the change is sincere. What do you think about this story? Have you experienced a similar situation, or have any thoughts on how Amanda solved the problem? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch other meaningful stories about life and family.